Kirk Douglas unearths the gentleman Clint Eastwood, who was Hollywood's darkest star. To grasp the reason why Kirk Douglas's words weighed so heavily, we first need to enter the life of Douglas himself, a man whose existence loomed larger than the silver screen he ruled over for over 7 decades. Born Isert Danilovich on December 9, 1916, in the blue-collar city of Amsterdam, New York, Kirk Douglas entered a life of struggle. His parents, impoverished Russian Jewish immigrants, fought to support their expanding family in the long shadows of early 20th century America, a land where opportunity was present, but out of reach for rivals who had neither money nor influence. His father was a ragman, a scrap collector and seller, and the family just barely got by. Out of these low, hard beginnings came a persistent will that would propel Douglas from penury to the pinnacle of Hollywood's golden era. Douglas exhibited the discipline and ambition that would serve as the hallmark of his life from his earliest years. He was adamant that he not be defeated by circumstance. While others perceived barriers, Douglas perceived hurdles to be leaped over, and this inner flame drove him towards education and self-improvement. In spite of odds, he gained admission to St. Lawrence University, where he was a drama student while barely scraping by. There the roots for his acting career were sown. Following graduation, he furthered his studies at the elite American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City, where his native charisma and ferocity started to emerge under professional tutelage. But being a struggling young actor was not all it was cracked up to be. Douglas accepted minor roles, labored backstage, suffered through numerous rejection slips, and existed each day with the uncertainty of whether success would ever be his. His doggedness at last came to fruition when he made his movie debut in The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, 1946, a performance that immediately demonstrated his raw charisma. Within 3 years, he became a household name with Champion, 1949, playing the brutish boxer Midge Kelly. This performance brought him his first Academy Award nomination and established the tone for much of his career. He would play men who were hard, multi-layered, and unyielding, characters who reflected the hard-won toughness of his own life. In the 1950s and later, Douglas appeared in a series of classics that not only demonstrated his range, but also redefined Hollywood itself. He portrayed the shadow of American ambition in Ace in the Hole, 1951, the cynical image of corrupting movie industry itself in The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952, equally big-budget adventure in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1954, and his dynamic performance as Vincent van Gogh in Lust for Life, 1956, won him universal acclaim. Few of his contemporaries could match such versatility, and fewer still could equal his commanding stage presence. Kirk Douglas was not satisfied with mere stardom, however. He became a trailblazer, charting new ground toward artistic freedom in an age when the studios held a firm grip on every facet of filmmaking. He was one of the earliest actors to establish his own production company, so he had a voice in what projects he did and how they were done. His biggest gamble was in 1960 with Spartacus, the historical epic of freedom and uprising. Both starring and producing, Douglas not only made a movie milestone, but also went the unprecedented step of defying the Hollywood blacklist by giving screen credit to the blacklisted writer Dalton Trumbo, who had been excluded for supposed communist sympathies. Douglas risked his own career for justice, equality, and freedom of art. This act identified him as an actor and as a man of principle. His life off-screen was no less compelling. Douglas weathered serious health challenges, including a stroke and heart surgeries, yet he refused to retreat from the world. Instead, he wrote extensively, authoring memoirs such as The Ragman's Son and My Way, which offered candid reflections on his struggles, triumphs, and philosophies. These writings revealed a man of remarkable honesty, courage, and humor, one who never forgot the lessons of his humble beginnings. Douglas's own life, like his career, was characterized by both success and tragedy. His initial marriage to actress Diana Dill in 1943 yielded 2 sons, Michael, who would become one of Hollywood's most successful male actors, and Joel, who would achieve his own success as a producer. But the stresses of Hollywood and personal differences dissolved their marriage in 1951. Douglas's love life thereafter was stormy, most notably a very public engagement to Italian actress Angeli that never came to marriage. But in 1953, the life of Douglas changed dramatically when he encountered Anne Bidens in Paris. Hannelore Marx was born in Germany, and she had escaped the Nazi atrocities and rebuilt herself in Europe. Independent, sophisticated, and bilingual, she was a far cry from anyone Douglas had ever met. They wed in 1954, and their union lasted over 60 years. They had 2 additional sons, Peter and Eric. Peter became a successful producer, but Eric died in 2004 under tragic circumstances from a substance abuse issue, something that devastated the family. Kirk and survived, their marriage made stronger by candor, humor, and an unorthodox understanding. And freely admitted Kirk's unfaithfulness, but clarified that being a European, she never demanded absolute fidelity, instead emphasizing the closeness they shared. Not even in their advanced age did the couple stop telling their tale to the world, publishing Kirk and Letters of Love, Laughter, and A Lifetime in Hollywood in 2017, a publication that reflected the warmth, vitality, and closeness of their enduring marriage. It was against this background of a life so thoroughly lived that Douglas's thoughts on Clint Eastwood weighed so heavily. Douglas had watched thousands of actors come and go, had witnessed egos and scandals ruin careers, and had lived long enough to have watched Hollywood remake itself dozens of times. And still, when he mentioned Eastwood, he did so with unambiguous respect. Douglas painted Clint Eastwood, who is so commonly regarded as Hollywood's darkest star, as indeed a gentleman, a bold contrast to his rugged, brooding on-screen persona. While audiences witnessed the cold, merciless gunslinger of the good, the bad, and the ugly or the unyielding cop of Dirty Harry, Douglas saw a man of reserved dignity. Clint had this calm, respectful way about him. Douglas said, everybody, crew, assistants, even strangers, he treated with real courtesy. It's a little like he had a different aura than the image he projected on screen. It intrigued Douglas. Eastwood's darkness was not arrogance or cruelty, but intensity, a richness of character and seriousness regarding art and life that transmuted into performances that would be remembered forever. Douglas marveled at Eastwood's careful professionalism, his preparation, and his regard for the craft. Eastwood was to Douglas the exceptional balance of artistic genius and personal integrity, a reminder that greatness in Hollywood wasn't just about box office stats, but about how one treated others in the process. But Douglas did not dismiss the mystique that rendered Eastwood one of Hollywood's more mysterious stars. He recognized the aura of brooding intensity that earned Eastwood the nickname Dark Star, but he recast it as a badge of authenticity rather than threat. Clint's intensity was never cruelty, Douglas said. It was a seriousness about life and about art. To Douglas, who had battled his own struggles against Hollywood's machinery, this seriousness was a badge of solidarity. Most notable of all was Douglas's assessment of Eastwood's humility. Fame, awards, and riches hadn't changed him. Eastwood was still accessible, down to earth, and polite. He listened to others, respected their opinions, and never succumbed to the hubris that engulfed so many of his contemporaries. For Douglas, who had witnessed firsthand the ruinous strength of ego, this humility was evidence of Eastwood's greatness. Kirk Douglas's musings stripped away the legend of Clint Eastwood, exposing a man whose toughness was matched by decency, discipline, and humanity. For Douglas, Eastwood's own legacy would be marked not only by his iconic performances, but by the silent regard with which he was held by those who worked with him. And as for Douglas himself, his astonishing life ended on February 5, 2020, when he died at the remarkable age of 103. He passed away at home in Beverly Hills, surrounded by family, the end of a century-long odyssey that had taken in Hollywood's golden age and far beyond. 2 days later, his funeral was held at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in a private ceremony surrounded by family and friends, as well as by fellow actors. There, Douglas was buried next to his son Eric, a touching reminder of the long-lasting family ties that filled his life. Exactly 1 year later, on April 29, 2021, and Douglas died at 102. She was laid to rest with her husband and son, their family grave becoming not only a resting place, but a testament of abiding love, strength, and togetherness. Side by side in life and in death, Kirk and were a unique and amazing tale of love that rose above the glitz and glory of Hollywood. The Kirk Douglas narrative Clint Eastwood commentary and eventual death is less about two individuals who own decades of film. It is a tale of strength, integrity, and the ability of man to overcome adversity, fame, and even tragedy. Douglas's testimony regarding Eastwood reminds us that the legends we observe on the screen are not necessarily such in life, and that the quietest strength is sometimes quiet dignity, humility, and respect for others. Ultimately, Kirk Douglas himself personified those same qualities. Not merely a Hollywood titan, he was also a man who knew that real greatness resided in equilibrating ambition with integrity, talent with compassion, and fame with humanity. His life and his observations on Clint Eastwood leave behind a legacy that inspires and provokes the world of film and beyond. But Douglas did not dismiss the mystique that rendered Eastwood one of Hollywood's more mysterious stars. He recognized the aura of brooding intensity that earned Eastwood the nickname Dark Star, but he recast it as a badge of authenticity rather than threat. Clint's intensity was never cruelty, Douglas said. It was a seriousness about life and about art. To Douglas, who had battled his own struggles against Hollywood's machinery, this seriousness was a badge of solidarity. Most notable of all was Douglas's assessment of Eastwood's humility. Fame, awards, and riches hadn't changed him. Eastwood was still accessible, down to earth, and polite. He listened to others, respected their opinions, and never succumbed to the hubris that engulfed so many of his contemporaries. For Douglas, who had witnessed firsthand the ruinous strength of ego, this humility was evidence of Eastwood's greatness. Kirk Douglas's musings stripped away the legend of Clint Eastwood, exposing a man whose toughness was matched by decency, discipline, and humanity. For Douglas, Eastwood's own legacy would be marked not only by his iconic performances, but by the silent regard with which he was held by those who worked with him. And as for Douglas himself, his astonishing life ended on February 5, 2020, when he died at the remarkable age of 103. He passed away at home in Beverly Hills, surrounded by family, the end of a century-long odyssey that had taken in Hollywood's golden age and far beyond. 2 days later, his funeral was held at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in a private ceremony surrounded by family and friends, as well as by fellow actors. There, Douglas was buried next